Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back for another video here as I hit up another installment, installment number 2 of the Terrifier films. I say films because I know Art the Clown was also in All Hallows Eve, an anthology film which I will revisit around Halloween and put up a video for. But this is the second feature film, and there's a third one around, coming just around the corner, I believe at Halloween as well. So if you missed my first installment on this, I'll put up a link in the description as well as on the closing screen. But as for this entry for Terrifier 2, the synopsis is as follows. After being resurrected by a sinister entity, Art the Clown returns to the timid town of Miles County where he targets a teenage girl and her younger brother on Halloween night. So, this one is kind of strange. So, it builds directly off the first film, as the characters are aware of what had happened the year before with this killer. And there's a lot going on in this one here, which I won't spoil, and honestly, much of it was kind of hard for me to wrap my head around because there's so much going on, and it's a much longer film, it being 2 hours and 18 minutes. Which, though that breaks my kind of 90-minute golden rule that I like to stick to with a lot of horror films, I feel that's like the perfect kind of runtime, and it's broken it by over 40 minutes. They actually use that time quite well in this one. But even as even on this being my second viewing of Terrifier 2, much of this was a bit jumbled strictly in the storyline sense, as so much more is going on, and there were some aspects of it that I lost track of or didn't read into as much as I should have or absorb as well as I could have, because it's kind of still being wowed more by the effects and the gore as well as the shooting style and the soundtrack that they have and the acting actually. Everything on this was stitched together really great, and I really enjoyed the entire ride. Now I know my first video about Terrifier had kind of focused on the gore aspect, on is there more to this than just the gore, which it was really famous for as being a really gory film at the time. And spoiler alert, if you haven't seen that video yet, there is much more. There's a lot more going on than just it being a gory film. This one, Terrifier 2, is very similar in that way. Somehow they kind of upped the gore, and like the original, I remembered it actually being more gory than it really was, in that while I remembered certain aspects and they did show a lot, the quick cutaways during those shocking moments worked in a similar way where, thinking back, my mind kind of filled in the gaps, or I remembered those scenes going on much longer than they actually did. One note that I kind of took from this is that if you take a film like From Dusk Till Dawn and you look at the hotel scene where they focus in on George Clooney's character's face, only showing flashes of what his brother had done, it was more impactful than just showing everything that had been done. Except that those flashes and those short edits that we get in this film are much more gory and disturbing moments to kind of take in. And a quick little sidebar tangent here, this just kind of reminded me that I went to find this footage and I realized, of that hotel scene, and I noticed that I'd actually already had it. And it turns out I used that same kind of reference in one of my much earlier videos for The Call, which I think I did that almost 3 years ago. It's a very early video of mine, so I'll link to that one at the end as well, because I do want to do a rewatch of that one because I really remember enjoying The Call. But kind of along those lines, I remember running into Robin Lively at Spooky Empire in 2022. Now, she played the mother in Gordon McGibbon's Life on Normal Street, Gordimer being played by Sloane Morgan Siegel, who did a great job in The Call, so we kind of started talking about that film some. But anyways, back to Terrifier 2, because all those little memories kind of came up, because Terrifier 2 is definitely a very different form of entertainment than Gordimer Gibbons. Anyways, so like I said, they used the gore really well somehow. I don't remember too many jump scares either. More like they played on this creepiness factor and this threat of what may happen to a character after seeing either the previous film or some previous violent scenes in this one to drive that fear. This idea of, here it comes, what's going to happen kind of idea. And aside from finding a way to bring Art the Clown back, which they do in a lot of horror films, they find a way to bring that killer back. This one where they, kind of work in this supernatural element, they also added another character, just titled The Little Pale Girl. So this is played by Emily McLean, who is so creepy in this, and so disturbing in this role. She sells it really well in a way in which I felt the need that I had to meet her when she was attending a con about a year ago. So when the line kind of died down, I walked up, shook her hand, chatted with her and her mother for a while, and at the end said something to the effect of, All right, I just needed to know you were just a regular 13-year-old kid because that role really freaked me out. And it's more than just like the makeup and the violent scenes that her character has, but her entire set of mannerisms and the way that she held herself were so disturbing, making this duo of Little Pale Girl and Art the Clown truly just scary and disgusting. But outside of all that, as I mentioned, the supernatural side is really opening things up in this film. There's a lot which I won't go into due to spoilers, but this extra level is why there's so much more of a runtime in this one. And it definitely opens a door for the next installment, which I believe will have some Christmas elements to it. But other than that, I don't really know anything about what we have in store for that new film, except that it's going to hopefully open up some more, story possibilities now that we have this supernatural aspect to it. Because also where this one really shines is that it's not like the first film. Something which happens a lot with sequels, I feel, is that we get kind of like a retelling of the original too much, or just putting a skin over top of that original kind of story, maybe changing something about a location, but ultimately being pretty much the same, and we're just calling it a new installment. But in this case, where the first one feels like this long late night that the characters are going through, kind of trapped with this killer, very confined and claustrophobic, this film is much more of an open story, with both the supernatural side and this stalking aspect, this killer circling in kind of toward their prey. But of course, like the original, the gore also sticks out above many other films, both in the degree that it's used and how successfully it's actually balanced with the story that they put together. And though some of this was a little bit hard to follow, for me anyways, as there was a lot going on in this entry, that's fine because I enjoyed it enough to not even be able to decide between the first one and the second one which one I enjoyed the most. They both have their merits. One is a lot quicker and more confined, and one is much more open and a much longer and stranger story to get through. It's just a very good time to watch, and was built off of what came before it without retreading too much territory, which opened things up both in this film and for the next one, that should be coming. It really makes it more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest entry for Terrifier 2 from 2022, which at the time of this video is also available on paid rental, as well as some ad-supported services such as Roku, and some subscription services such as Screambox. So if interested, hit up Just Watch and see what services it's on, if there's one that you already have access to and want to give it a watch. Thanks for coming by, and I will see you in the next one.